right. So Meg Sullivan, welcome to Wonder Woman in Business podcast.
Thank you. Delighted to be here.
You're welcome. It's hard to get our schedules to align, so it's kind of a miracle.
I know, right?
So if you don't mind, I just want to give for my audience, my new audience, this very new podcast, just a little bit of an intro to Wonder Woman in Business podcast,
Right.
and more importantly, introduction to you as my special guest for today. So my name is Jasmine Sandler. I'm the CEO of a digital marketing and media agency called JS Media for the last unbelievable 14 years. And I've always supported women in business. Just so happens that this kind of came to me after being a speaker and seeing the opportunity to help women. And that's what this podcast is really. It's really all about women supporting women, whether you are a senior level executive like Meg, or you're like me, you're an entrepreneur and you're kind of hustling hard and you're all over the place. So, I kind of handpick and choose my guests as people that really are leaders and are authentically helping women and not just using female movements to say that they do. And so I really want to get into the nitty gritty about it with Meg today. So a quick introduction to Meg Sullivan and how I came about her actually. And she's going to tell you a lot more and I might screw it up. But so Meg Sullivan is a partner at a law firm. So we'll talk about that today. I know that's not an easy feat. Paul Hastings in New York. And she's also the founder of the Quorum Initiative. And the Quorum Initiative is actually how I know about Meg. I have a friend over at KPMG who kindly introduced me to the Quorum Initiative. I went in as a guest to a meeting and I wasn't sure if I was supposed to be quiet, but it was one of the best conversations I've ever sat around in a round table. So I did raise my hand and speak a lot about women in leadership and women in diversity and how can women really have a better place and how can women come together and support each other. So welcome, Meg. I think what I want to do is just start by having you talk a little bit because I don't know you too well yet. Tell us a little bit about, how did you get here today? Who are you? And, what's kind of your mission as a leader in a law firm, as a leader at the Quorum Initiative? So go ahead and tell us a little bit, please.
Yeah, thank you. It's such a delight to be with you today. So I have kind of an eclectic background. I'm a Midwesterner, so grew up in St. Louis, Missouri, one of 5 kids.
Uh-oh. I'm a Bruins fan, so we might get a fight right now. But go ahead.
If you asked me in my early days, I would have told you that what I was going to do for my career was become a professional equestrian show jumper and ride for the team in the Olympics. That was my goal.
Wow, we have a lot in common.
And so that was really a cool thing early on. I do think like doing sport at that level shapes you. So I mention it for really that reason. But my parents told me that riding full-time would be fine once I got my degree at college. So so off to Sarah Lawrence College I went. And I tell you, that was that changed me. Sarah Lawrence really provided this amazing environment for me to expand my horizons, think about the world differently, learn how to write, learn how to critically think, all kinds of great stuff that you would like to believe you get out of school, that really happened for me. And then I embarked on a professional career and sort of left the writing behind. So my background is I've actually worked in 5 different industries. So I started out in media. I then moved into financial services in the private equity sector. Then I worked in consumer goods for a stint. And then into accounting and then into law. So that's sort of my path. So when I said it was a little eclectic, that, not everyone gets a chance to work in so many different environments. And that has formed me as well, I would say. And I've now been in law for quite a consistent, stint, probably 15 years now. So that's been quite an interesting time. I've also had the privilege of working and living. The first part of my career was really based over in Europe, in France. And so I've had the experience of also doing that in different markets and having really international experience all throughout my career.
Wow. Well, so many things to tap into with you, Meg. I grew up outside of Boston with horses.
Okay.
I I love jumping. I always got bored with dressage.
Right.
And I agree with you. I think a lot of the women that I come across that are go-getters have this sports background, and it teaches you discipline,
It does.
especially if you take care of your own horse and deal with the stable and all
And
those good things.
yeah, it really does. It does. And
Yeah.
also, I don't know, there's something for me. I mean, I'm going to be really honest. I love to compete. I'm a competitor, and it
Good.
really taught me to be a good one at that. You don't always win, that. That's part of the game,
Mhm.
and it sort of teaches you that resilience of, getting back up, no kidding, no pun intended, onto the
Right.
horse, again, when things have gone awry or not quite the way you want. And so that's a great early learning process, I think, for people.
I think that's actually a really important thing to talk about in general because I see, just in how men and women are raised differently, right?
Right.
So a man is taught to go after things,
Mm,
and a woman is taught, or a girl, I'll start with that,
yeah.
is kind of taught to say, "Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me," all these niceties.
Right.
And so how have you got to your level by competing as a woman? Because I know that
Yeah.
it's hard for women.
It is hard.
Something you
I,
can share that you've done, an
yeah.
example.
I'll tell you, I mentioned I'm one of 5 kids, so I have 3 brothers. I have
Okay.
to tell you that did condition me a little bit, in terms of, how do you operate in a man's world, because they dominated in our household. I'll just be
Hmm.
honest about that. And I think I'm a middle child, so I needed to find my voice
Yeah.
early and quickly. And so I think I did those things, and that really set me up when I got into a business environment of not being afraid to um, to raise my hand or get out into the mix, to take on things that were bigger than I probably was ready for.
Hmm.
And I'm sure between the training of the sport and sort of the training of the family, those two things supported me really well, entering into the professional world. I was quite fearless, almost to a point of recklessness, and that served
Mm,
me really well. Um,
yeah.
just served me really well. And what I didn't know when I took on something, I learned as I went, and was fine with being that uncomfortable. And I think that's something that's hard for women sometimes.
Hmm.
Can be a stumbling block. We want to dot all the I's and cross all the T's, and sometimes you just need to get in the mix.
Yeah. Oh, I know. I run the Hockey Players in Business, New York City. All men as members.
Well, there you
So
go.
we
Yeah,
should have a
right.
joint event. But
Yeah,
so let's talk a little bit about you as an executive, as a female executive in corporate,
yeah,
taking chances versus an entrepreneur. And I'll tell you that an entrepreneur, in my experience, right,
yeah,
has more freedom because there's no
yeah.
one that's really telling us
Right.
no. I mean, they believe me, they're telling me no about a million times a day,
Yeah,
but
sure.
but I keep going forward. So, but there's more constraints, right? Because my background's with
Yeah.
IBM, I get it. So, how have you succeeded in constraints? They call it red tape. Can you
Hmm.
talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. I sort of look at myself, if I were to define myself, I would tell you that I think I'm 2 big things. One is I'm both an intrapreneur and an
That's interesting.
entrepreneur. So those are kind of interesting things. And I celebrate that in myself, which isn't always loved, but it's been very useful to me as I've looked at my roles over time. So I've really felt like, because I was the only woman in the room 99% of the time, and I didn't have a ton of role models in front of me. That wasn't what I was seeing,
Yeah, that's true.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
I felt very okay with being a bit of a disruptor because it was expected anyway. So I might as
Hmm.
well double down,
Yeah.
on. So that almost was freeing in this very bizarre way. I didn't try to fit in because there was no possibility for me to do it.
Oh, wow. That's really interesting.
So I think
Hmm.
sometimes it's how we frame situations as well. Sometimes we can get really stuck in 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 a situation where we're feeling so odd and being the odd person out. And if we can learn to actually embrace that, it's a gift. It's a gift that keeps giving for me every single day in everything I do.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's you're talking to the preacher in terms of the really owning your personal brand. I mean, it's such a catchphrase, but
Right.
really owning who you are, right?
Right.
And embracing that. And so
Right.
would you mind giving an example of maybe something that you've done either at Paul Hastings or another company where you've really embraced your own personality to make a difference, start a program, help women, anything like that will help my audience kind of
Yeah, for
understand.
sure. Well, so my big passion that you talked about when you started off was the accelerating the advancement of women. And so I started the organization, Quorum Initiative, about 8 years ago. And
Okay.
my whole and sole purpose around that, and that's what I would call my entrepreneurial
Right.
effort, if you
Yeah.
will.
Well, it is.
My goal around that was I cannot be the only woman out there that believes that one, change has to happen, two, that we have to do it together,
Yes.
right? It's a
Mhm.
collective. You cannot do it as an individual. It
Can't.
won't work because
Agreed.
the challenges are too big. And three, we have to support each other in that. And that's the only way the change is going to get done, So one, we can't wait around for someone else to do it. They're not going to do it.
No, they're not.
So it's up to us. That doesn't mean we don't have to engage others. And in fact, we really do have to engage men in getting to the solutions. But if we don't take the mantle, if we don't take the lead, if we don't insist, if we don't use our positions of influence and power, which we all have every day. We can't, it has to be relentless. And so I really started Quorum in hopes that I could find a diverse group of women coming from all different areas with all different kinds of roles, with varying backgrounds, you name it, but who believe in that, really believe in that, so that we could spend serious time thinking about how we take action, how do we engage together and get the job done. And so, I've done that within that organization. I hope that I'm touching a lot of people and inspiring folks to live that mission. I also have taken it back to my own organization and tried to live it every day. So I ended up responsible for all of the diversity inclusion efforts at Paul Hastings a couple of years ago. I was not responsible for it originally.
Wow.
And that tie-in was because of the work they'd seen me do outside of the firm and wanted to take advantage of it within the firm.
Yeah.
And, we've tried to do a lot of things to continue to promote the notion of how important a diverse environment is. Law is not known, like many industries, for being diverse. It's a struggle every day. And so we've done a lot to, I think, really advance the dialogue and start getting some very tangible changes happening. So that's been my personal goal is not only to talk about it, but actually demonstrate it,
Yeah, absolutely. Are there anything specific that you could talk about at Paul Hastings that you've done through your diversity and inclusion? Like any events where you've seen success, any women leaders going up the chain, anything in the community, any?
One of the interesting things, we did a lot of work. One of the big things that a lot of businesses are talking about right now is the whole notion of biases and how do you embrace that we all have them.
Yeah.
And then think about how you consider the ones that might be a stumbling block for creating an inclusive environment. And so we've had quite a successful firm-wide rollout of that program at Paul Hastings, which hadn't been done everywhere in the legal business. So we were one of the early folks in terms of getting it done and done across all ranks, management through the partnership all the way down through the entire firm. So although that's just the beginning of the work that needs to be done, to get everybody on the same page with similar language matters a lot. You're talking to each other in a whole new way. We did a whole big initiative around wellness and what we call balance. And interestingly enough, the whole firm has participated in that as well. And it's been a huge common ground where people can talk about issues of struggling, to juggle the demands of a demanding work environment with family obligations and all kinds of things. And you know that that's just such a huge. How do you manage all these struggles in front of all of us, every day?
Every day. Yeah.
And that's true for everyone. So it was an amazing starting place to create real common ground about health, wellness. How do we support each other?
So important.
Right. So that then you're all starting from a place of strength, and then it's easier to look at yourself and reflect on, how you're showing up in the world every day. And that's actually a kind of notion to how you evolve culture, I think, in anywhere,
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was reading from the International Labor Organization this week. I shared a report that just came out. I think this report comes out every 5 years or something, about the importance of women at the top to inspire productivity. And I agree with that, but I also think, just in the nature of talking to a lot of women, that the only way we can be productive if we have effective self-care.
Yeah.
So I mean, this is just human nature.
It is human.
It's human, and it's so important, not just for women, for men too. But I think it's something. I love that you're doing that, because wellness is something that is shaking up. The whole medical industry is changing. It's gonna be it's a whole nother conversation. But sure, at least you are doing something tangible and actionable in the workplace.
Yeah. The other thing we try to do too, if it's helpful for folks, the other thing we really try to do is engage our clients in the work that we're trying to do. And the really interesting part about that is when you're trying to move culture, somebody has to see the benefit in it for them. To actually get a shift, if you're thinking about how you're movement happen.
Yeah.
And when you involve clients, there's no question in anyone's mind what the potential benefit is, right? To everybody involved. And so we've done a lot of programming where we've done it collaboratively instead of just in an insular way. And that has been a bit of a game changer in terms of not only raising awareness, but helping people really think about how real these issues are, and that people care. Our clients care for sure, and they're working very hard on these issues, and we have to be able to reflect that back at them. So that's our responsibility. And so that's been a really other interesting avenue that we've tried to adopt to, be more innovative in the way we're thinking about things.
That's fantastic. I mean, it really is. I mean, what you're talking about, as you mentioned beforehand, is it can't be just one person or one company,
right?
Or one city. This is a global problem, or I would say challenge is a better word.
Yeah. It's
a global challenge that we all face and that we all need to do something about.
Right.
It's like the environment. One person can't plant a tree and save the world, right? So
that's right.
Right. I mean, I wish that were the case, but so I do like that you are taking this kind of to the next level. So can you talk a little bit more about, because I'm sure my audience wants to know about the Quorum Initiative, a little bit about that, and how maybe they could get involved and support what you're doing?
Yeah. So Quorum's, I think I mentioned this, Quorum's mission is really to accelerate the advancement of executive women with the focus that they're being and impacting change in business, in the culture or environments around them, so broader outside of just where they may work, and also even taking it one step further, thinking about our role in influencing public policy. All those things have to happen to get the change done. So those at Quorum, we're trying to have conversations around all of those kinds of concepts. Our ultimate goal of goals, this community is really signed on and to the notion that we're going to create a sustainable and thriving society where gender parity is the norm. And it's just weird that we have to keep talking about that as if that's that just should be. But there's a lot of work to get there still, unfortunately. So the good news is that I think there's wind in the sails, at least for women at the moment. And my hope is that can have a knock-on effect to other diverse communities. That it's time to pay a little more attention, and we need to work hard at how do we get this done in a smart, meaningful, sustainable way. So
Yep.
Quorum is actually has 4 chapters. We're up and running in New York, DC, London, and we just launched Chicago last week. So
Oh,
that's very exciting
congratulations.
for us. Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you.
congratulations.
And what we're trying to do is have a local community, so you can build out your network, your base of contacts, grow your connections. It's one of the things we've noticed women when they get about midstream into their career is there's been so many demands on their time, and in order to be successful, they've had their head down working so hard that they've let go of a community in the professional environment. They have a community in their personal environment because they can't get it all done otherwise, in terms of the network that they have in place. But for some reason, they haven't given the same energy to the network in the professional environment. So when they have demonstrated their amazing capabilities and superpowers in the professional world, they turn around and they realize that their base of contact is much weaker than often men have. Men tend to grow that and facilitate that better. Just seems to be the path. They do it all the way through their career with.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
So one of the things we hope Quorum provides is actually an ability for people to plug right into a peer group of
That's great.
of women who are invested in the same notions and ideas. So you have a starting point where you're connected.
I love it. So one more question. Well, I have 2, but one more large question.
Yeah.
So we talk about men, and I had a great client in the last couple of years, Roche Diagnostics. He came to me actually because a man, Rod Cotton, now a friend of mine, a great guy, a leader at Roche Diagnostics, took a lead in the women's initiative to help that grow, and he really did spearhead that.
Right.
So how do we what's your idea on getting men involved? Because like you said, men have to be involved.
Yeah.
Right? They have to support this. If we're trying to make a change in gender, in diversity and inclusion and all these things, what's your idea? Maybe what have you done or what have you seen?
I think the biggest thing to be paying attention to is looking for those champions. And there's a lot of them out there. They just don't quite know what to do. So what our job becomes, I believe, us women, is to help them understand what they can do to facilitate the paths for us, to champion the causes that we need championed. And so you can't get that done unless you actually engage in dialogue. Some of what happens is we actually we're not communicating fluidly enough about what's reality for each other, and where each other are at, so that when we go to actually work together, we can find common ground that makes some sense and get some wins in, push the envelope a little bit, make some progress, and then build off of that. And that's what we seem to be missing a little. I would love it if we could leapfrog from where we are today to, utopia tomorrow.
Yeah.
But there's actually a lot of steps that have to happen in between, and there's no way around that. We have to do the work, so. And you have to bring everyone along with it. So for me, it's a lot about how do you find some commonality, some common ground, places where you'd be delighted to work together to further the cause. And I just think there's a ton of men out there with a big appetite for that. They just aren't quite sure how to approach it all. And particularly today's environment that's a little bit electric, they're trying to be careful about how to do that. So even more so, we need to actually be willing to have the conversation, understand what they're worried about, and then help reframe that for them so that they can help us move things forward.
Yeah. No, it's true. It's these boundaries that you have to cross. But I think you hit the nail on the head. You have to start with the conversations. And I certainly know Jack McAdoo. Was a speaker at my conference, Brand New, and he has a podcast. He's a great guy, and he's all about supporting women in business. And I told him, like, you're a diamond in the rough. We need more men to actually communicate that to the public. So I
Yeah.
think you're right. I think they're
Yeah.
out there. I think they're out there or in there in terms of if you're at a company.
Yep.
It's just a matter of finding them and bringing them into these conversations.
Yep.
I really strongly believe in that instead of, well, this is a women's initiative, right?
No,
Because
and men, because currently they're still holding a lot of the power positions. One of the biggest things that they need to do is advocate. And so that, that has to be the initial conversation. They have to advocate. They have to advocate. They have to be sponsors for talent, female talent. And if they do those two things, that's a huge step forward for us,
Yeah. Oh, yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
So, last question is, so is there a way that women could get involved with the Quorum Initiative or, or any events coming up?
Yeah. So probably the easiest way is to reach out to us through the website, quoruminitiative.com.
Thequoruminitiative.com. Okay.
Yeah. And
Good.
all the events that the organization does in all markets is up on the site. So we're delighted to invite new dynamic faces to the community. Please feel free to reach. All the information about how to be a member and all that stuff is on the website. So it's probably the easiest path. We have, over the summer, we have a bunch of sort of summer socials. It's a time where we do more social and less content. And then in the fall, we'll end up with events focused on, big issues we're trying to tackle to advance women.
Okay, great. Yes, I think for all the ladies that are listening and watching, the quoruminitiative.com, I can tell you it's definitely worth your time. Like I said, I was in that room and I said, I think I found my home. So if you're really looking to make a difference and you want to be around like-minded women, I think we all want you to join in. So Meg, I want to thank you so much for your time. I know you're a busy lady.
Jasmine, thank you. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
It's been a delight.
We'll have you back on, I'm sure, in the future. So
I look forward to it.
Okay, thanks again.
All right, take care.
Take care. Bye. Bye, everyone.